Hello, childlike people of BookTube. My name is Morgan, and in this reading vlog, I am going to attempt something I never have before, which is reading for an entire day straight. As I am filming this, it is a Friday afternoon, and tomorrow, Saturday, I have no plans, so I figured I would plan to read all day. I'm not just reading anything though, I have a specific goal in mind, and that is to read two of my childhood favorites by the German fantasy author Michael Ende. Those books are Momo and The Neverending Story. I think I'm actually going to start this challenge at around 10 p.m. tonight because I usually go to bed at 11 p.m. so I'll have an hour of reading to do this evening as I fall asleep, and then I'll finish tomorrow at 10 p.m. as well because I'll probably be getting tired again by that point. I almost never sacrifice my sleep for anything. That said, I am going to try to wake up really early tomorrow to read, so usually I get like 8 or 9 hours of sleep at night. I might sacrifice a bit and go to 6 or 7 hours just for tonight only, so that I can try to get through both of these books. Accumulated, they are 681 pages of reading. I don't think I've ever read that much in a single day. I know some people on BookTube in their 24-hour reading vlogs, they're reading like 1,500 pages in a 24-hour period. I don't think I am at that elite reading level yet, so I'm going to stick to these children's novels. 681 pages. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get through both of them in a single day, but we are going to find out in this vlog. If you don't already know, these are two of Michael Ende's most famous works. I am most looking forward to reading The Neverending Story because it was my favorite book growing up, and it's Michael Ende's most famous book. It also has a movie adaptation that I might watch tomorrow just for fun, but I think I might actually start with Momo because chronologically it was published first. Momo was published in 1973 and The Neverending Story in 79. So Momo is the shorter of the two books, and it is about a little girl named Momo. She is a mysterious little girl. Nobody knows where she came from, but she is a very good listener. She lives in this happy little city. Everyone goes to her for help, and things are disrupted one day when the men in gray show up to the city, and their task is to save time, or so they say. Really what is going on is stealing time, and it's up to Momo to save the city's time. Or rescue the time, I guess I should say. The Neverending Story is much more adventurous, and it must have been such an undertaking to write. It establishes an entire fantastical world called Fantastica, where the childlike empress is ruling, but she has fallen ill, and something called the Nothing is taking over this land, and this boy named Atreyu has been tasked with finding a cure for the Empress. But the framing device of this book is actually about a young boy named Bastian who, to escape the troubles of his own world, escapes to a bookstore, and there he finds a book called The Neverending Story. So he steals it from the store and he starts to read it, and it is then that he gets sucked into the world of Fantastica and we meet all of these fabulous characters. I am so looking forward to revisiting this world. It's gonna be such a comfy day and I cannot wait. So thank you for joining me on this journey. I will see you again later this evening to do my first hour of reading. It is 8:30 a.m. now, so I've been reading for just over an hour, plus what I read last night, and I am almost exactly halfway through the book. We've just been introduced to this tortoise on the front cover that says "Follow me" on its back, and he seems to be leading Momo into a place that is beyond time. There's a character in this story who loves telling stories, and the way that Momo listens to people, it sort of enhances their very essence. So whenever he's with her, his mind is filled with story ideas, the most imaginative things possible, and he tells those stories at great length. So the book Momo is kind of like 20 stories in one, and all of his stories are quite clever and allegorical, and they all speak back to the main issue at hand, which is that the adults in the world have started becoming obsessed with saving their time. These people have been convinced to save time by working harder at pursuits that give them less joy. But if they keep saving their time, they're going to end up with none left. So the book is quite sad and allegorical, and it's up to the children to save the adults in their city from the time thieves, these men in gray. And this just seems like it would be so empowering for a child to read. So I'm feeling awake enough now to make myself some coffee, and then I'll get back to reading, hopefully, the rest of this book. It is now 11 a.m. and I have finished Momo. I am very impressed with myself. I don't think I've read that much in one sitting since I was probably in high school. And I finished it just in time too, because my partner is in the kitchen making pancakes for me. So I'll take a reading break for some pancakes, and then I'll move on to the Neverending Story, which I am so excited for. Momo was great, but it does not have the same nostalgic feeling for me as the Neverending Story does. I did enjoy Momo as an adult. There were some sections that were simplified for a child's mind, like riddles that Momo had to solve that were extremely easy riddles, but for a child they would be racking their brain to try to solve them with Momo. That said, this book doesn't shy away from really deep philosophical and important metaphysical problems. There is like this man that is sort of the keeper of time, and at one point Momo looked at him and asked, "What will happen when my heart stops beating?" And I didn't find the men in gray as scary as I did when I was younger. This time I found them more like disturbing, because I realized that they are entirely gray because they live off consuming dead time. And in the book, time is life itself. So the men in gray, I think, are gray because like their bodies are devoid of blood. So they're literally just dead bodies walking around, which is disturbing to think about. I did stick a bunch of like little tabs in here because it does just have so many excellent messages, and it phrases these philosophical questions so well because it has simplified them for a child audience. Michael Ende like really knows his stuff and has done a lot of thinking, because when you are a true like expert and know something very deeply is when you are able to explain that thing to a child, and he does that excellently here. So the Momo reread was an absolute success. I should also mention I was drawn to this book growing up because one of my nicknames was Momo, so that's cute. Now I'm gonna eat some pancakes and move on to the Neverending Story. It is almost 3 o'clock now, and I decided I would read in bed for a while, but I didn't get very far because I did fall asleep in the middle of the afternoon, something I never do. But I also never try to read all day. I don't know how people do it. How do you read, like, where do you read all day? How do you read all day without just falling asleep? Like, I'm exhausted and all I've done is read. I don't know, but if you know the Neverending Story, We've already met Morla and the many, whatever the many's name is. And now we are at the Great Riddle Gate with the two sphinxes, almost. So things are getting intense. I have managed to wake myself up and keep reading, and Atreyu is now through all 3 gates and has spoken to Uyulala? Oh, that is my takeout. I will be right back. Food has been acquired, so I am going to go eat a burger and fries from Burger Priest and watch The Neverending Story, because I do think I am far enough through the book now that I can watch a good portion of the movie without getting to spoilers, because the movie I think does only cover about half of this book anyway, and I'm not quite halfway through, but I'm getting there. I just got to the point where Atreyu has made it through all 3 gates, and I totally forgot about that scene with Uyulala, the voice, and the voice only speaks and responds to rhyming, and I just remember loving that aspect of the book in my youth because I loved writing rhyming poems. I still do. But one thing I had forgotten is how delightfully meta this book is. Of course, like its framing device is pretty meta because it's a young boy who is reading a book about a young boy. So we're already set up to be reflecting on the act of reading a fantasy novel. But in this scene with Uyulala, does Uyulala have a gender? The voice. Okay. The voice. The voice says, "For we are figures in a book. We do what we were invented for, but we can fashion nothing new and cannot change from what we are." So like, this is the most meta piece of fiction I've maybe ever read. And that self-reflective quality of this book, I think, is one of the reasons that it is so immersive. And it's just amazing that Michael Ende was able to write a book about how immersed you can get in books, and that book itself is the most immersive piece of fantasy. And I'm only like a quarter of the way through. But we're going to take a break now and eat some burgers and watch maybe a bit of the movie, and I will talk to you soon. What? That's not supposed to happen in this scene. My reread of The Neverending Story did indeed come to an end, and thus concludes my 24-hour reading vlog to reread my childhood favorites by Michael Ende. I did not quite manage to read both books within the 24 hours. I had to read about 50 pages of the end of The Neverending Story the following morning, but I am still very proud of how many pages I read. It amounted to something like 630 pages within 24 hours. So who knows how many I can do next time. I think it's always good to set these little challenges for yourself, to push yourself to do more than you thought that you could, so that you can continually prove to yourself that you are capable of much more than you are aware of. So I hope this video inspires you to set your own challenge that you're not quite sure if you can achieve yet, because you might surprise yourself. I also encourage you to read The Neverending Story, especially if you are a lover of fantasy, because this book will never end. It will be with me in my heart every time I read a piece of fiction, especially a fantasy novel. You see, this book posits that there are 3 types of fantasy readers. 1, there are those who read fantasy, they basically read it as just fiction and lies on the page. It never truly enters their heart. They never truly get immersed in that fiction and really invest in those characters' lives. Second, there is the type of reader who gets so immersed and invested in those characters' lives that they never really come back out into the real world. And then the third type of fantasy reader is the kind that immerses themselves in the fiction. They get invested in the characters' lives. They go through so many adventures and trials. They meet so many new friends and loves. And then they come back out of the fiction and they take what they've learned back into the real world with them so that they can improve the lives of everybody around them. And this book is encouraging you to be that third type of fantasy reader. I think the thesis of this book, if there is one, is that fiction, and fantasy especially, has so much value to our real world because we get to experience these stories and then apply what we have learned to our everyday lives. So it may be fiction, it may be lies, but there are truths to be found deep within a novel. Thank you for watching this vlog, and if you want to stay tuned to see what I challenge myself to do next, then feel free to subscribe. Have a fantastical day, everybody!